Welcome back to another Pleasure Lit episode at Pleasure Lit with Patricia. And today I've actually got a beautiful guest speaker with me. I have had her on the podcast before, Liz Gorga. She's a sex educator, yoni massage practitioner, and a writer based in Brisbane, Australia. And her work is about restoring women's intimacy with themselves through sensation, language, and the stories that live within their bodies. Welcome to Pleasure Lit with Patricia.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here again.
Before we get started, how about we all take a deep breath together? So we're going to take a breath in through our nose, deep into our belly, and we're going to sigh it out. So big breath in and release. And we're going to do one more. Big breath in. And we're going to give one more because I know there is more that we can give ourselves permission to release on the exhale. So one big breath in. Oh, I can feel my shoulders drop. How are you feeling?
Yeah, good. That's a wonderful way to start.
It is. It just helps us to drop into our body. And I love doing that now with my listeners as well, hoping they take a deep breath in as well and feel the shift that we can do just with our breath. So powerful. My guest speaking episodes have had a change since you've been on. So I have created guiding questions. They're all around pleasure because this is what we're here for. We want to explore more around pleasure. How do we live it? How do we actually implement it into our lives? What are our personal pleasure blocks and challenges and all of that? So I would like to ask you some questions and feel free to just answer them in the way that you feel called to, that feels good to you. And if you feel there's anything, you can't speak to, that's totally fine too. Right now in your life, what's bringing you a lot of pleasure?
So many things. It's funny. I think sometimes when we think about pleasure, we think it automatically goes to the sexual. But, I was kind of contemplating this question this morning before we hopped on the call. And I was thinking about a conversation that I had with a friend recently. I met up with a friend last week and have you heard of the 36 questions that may lead to love?
No, I haven't.
It's really nice. I think it's actually a really cool resource that anyone listening could find. You can just Google it. It's online. I think it appeared in the New York Times, but it's essentially a questionnaire that has 36 questions broken into 3 levels. And so it sort of starts with more fun icebreaker type questions, and it gets deeper and more vulnerable as you go. And it's designed for people to get to know each other really fast. And it's also designed to create more intimacy in a romantic relationship, but you can do them with anyone. So my friend and I were going through these questions, and one of them was about describing your perfect day. And the way I described my perfect day, it was like, these are all the things that are bringing me pleasure right now, but they're all crammed into one day. So that kind of looks like for me starting the day with morning sex. So the sexual pleasure first, because I find in the morning, I am not in my head. I'm not thinking about anything yet. And I am just so much more in my body then. And I think also starting my day with an orgasm is like the best way to start the day. Nothing can go wrong if you start the day with an orgasm. But definitely, like, in terms of sexual pleasure, that is a big one for me. And then it's things like really good food, whether it's cooking food at home or going out for really nice meals with my friends or my partner, spending time with people that really fill my cup and make me feel good when I walk away from those interactions. Spending time in nature is a big one for me. So going for hikes, going, to the ocean and swimming in the sea and being in the sunshine, all of those things feel really good. And just having new adventures. Like, I feel like that's a really big one for me at the moment. That is bringing me pleasure, is just saying yes to a lot of new things and sort of collecting new experiences. All of those things make me feel so deeply present in my body, and they just make me feel good.
I love that you have just created that that beautiful day of like my perfect day. And I actually have a meditation for that. And it's also within my book, The Pleasure Lit Way, where we go into visualization of our most pleasurable day, starting from waking up. What do you see? Like, what do you smell? Like, how do you create your day if like all limits and barriers would be taken away? And it's exactly like you just explained. I would start it like this and I would do that. And I'm like, why aren't we? Why aren't we?
I love that.
And
that's perfect. I feel like that's such a good way to figure out what brings you pleasure, is like, what if it was the most perfect day?
It really helps to explore your desires and to just really lean into, what do I actually really want? Like, if I could really live the day of like, I do whatever I want to do, I would choose all the pleasurable things. And it's just a really beautiful way. And I love that you've just mentioned, because I love being like more sexual connected with myself or others in the mornings as well. And I just love that you've mentioned it's because we're already in our body. Like, it's not because we're not consumed already from like what's been happening. That's totally makes sense. I just had an aha moment there.
Yeah, totally. That's
When
so cool.
you hear the word pleasure, and you've just like talked slightly about that as well, what does it mean to you and how does it actually feel in your body?
Yeah, I think I did sort of touch on this. I think a lot of people, when they think about the word pleasure, it's equated to sex automatically. But for me, and I think, one of the reasons that I have the perspective that I do around pleasure is because a huge part of my work is yoni massage. And we talked a bit about that in the last episode that I was in. But, part of yoni massage is identifying pleasure in the body. And the way I describe it to people is it's anything that feels good. So yes, it could be turn on and arousal. That is pleasure, but it doesn't have to be. It's anything that feels good. So it's sensation that feels good. It's things that make you feel really nourished as well. And that could be sexual or non-sexual. And I think when we're allowing ourselves to feel the non-sexual pleasure and like those, just really soaking in those feel good sensations in the body, it paves the way to more pleasure in both areas.
How has your relationship with pleasure changed over time? So was there a moment or a phase where you think a lot of things shifted for you in regards to pleasure?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I probably did at some point have that mindset that pleasure was mostly about sex. And so I think, it's a very normal, like, human thing for us to experience changes in our sexuality, changes in our, our desire, our libido when, we go through various life transitions or our bodies change, we age, our relationship statuses change. And I think for me, a really big one, I've been in like a long-term monogamous relationship for a very long time. It's been about 12 years from when we're recording this that I've been with my husband. And it's so normal. Like, I think that was a big thing for me, is being with someone for a very long time is very normal for you to feel those dips in desire when you start to feel comfortable with someone. And when I started to experience that for the first time, I started to feel that a little bit of a disconnect from my sexuality and from just that experience of pleasure in my body. And I think the first time that I experienced that, when I had the disconnect from sex, it started to feel like a disconnect from pleasure in general. And it really rippled into a lot of areas of my life. And I think feeling that, and also then sort of embarking on my own journey of, rediscovering who I was as a sexual human in that period of time in my life, it really made me shift the perspective to pleasure doesn't have to be just about sex. It actually needs to be about everything, because when we make pleasure only about sex, then we're really missing out on just like the juiciness of being a human, and I think it also means, like, if you are ever in a place where you're feeling a little bit of that disconnect, the way back to the sexual pleasure is also through just that non-sexual pleasure as well. So I think that was a huge thing for me in shifting my perspective, was, seeing that I could infuse my days with little pleasures that were non-sexual, little or big pleasures that were non-sexual. And it created more of that really deep presence, that, those feel good sensations in the body that make you feel melted and make you feel nourished and make you feel like, you're expanded and all of that good stuff that we want to walk through the world with. And it also kind of shifts the perspective into making pleasure more of a priority. It doesn't need to fall at the end of your to-do list. So that was a big one for me, for sure.
And you've just mentioned your pleasure experiences, or even sexual pleasure experience, when it dipped and goes up and down, it kind of rippled through all the other areas of your life. So what has been your experience of pleasure influencing your life specifically, maybe to like money or work or relationships or something else? What have you noticed?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I think I said the words ripple effect, and that's totally what it is. I find that pleasure and your experience of pleasure, it really does touch every single aspect of how you move through the world. And I'm sure you find this too. This is your whole philosophy, isn't it? But I suppose for myself personally, what I find is in those moments when I was a bit disconnected from my pleasure, what I noticed was that it meant I was not feeling present in my body. It meant that I wasn't able to show up with presence in my relationships, in my work, and all of these things. And when I started to really prioritize pleasure, what I find is the biggest thing for me personally is when I feel good, when I feel wonderful sensations in my body, it also makes me feel like I love my body more, and it boosts my confidence. And when I feel confident, you walk differently, right? When you have confidence, you walk through the world having not only a better understanding of what you want, shoulders back, like a little bit of attitude, but I feel like when you're confident, you are more likely to express yourself in what you are wanting, what you are desiring. And that could be in sex. I definitely see it in romantic relationships, with my husband, for example. When I'm bringing more pleasure on a daily basis, I'm better able to show up as the best version of myself for him, which means we're communicating better. We're communicating better about doing things around the house, managing conflict, and also in the bedroom, we're able to drop deeper into pleasure together, which then enhances our sex life. And then I also see it in, other relationships with my family. If I'm feeling that confidence in myself, it means that with my family, I'm able to say no more often to things that are really draining to me, or to set boundaries with them. It means the same thing happens in work situations as well. I've seen myself walk away from jobs that were really sucking my energy dry. I've seen myself even, through the years that I've been running my own business, feeling like I have more confidence to express myself in the kinds of clients that I want to work with, in my pricing, being able to actually charge what I want to because I know that I deserve that, rather than feeling like I'm overgiving. And I think it really helps us to sort of step away from a lot of those people pleasing tendencies and really say, okay, this is what I want, and this is what I'm not going to settle for.
Yes. Oh, so agree. I think we all go through these stages where we learn and this connection, especially when we work in the pleasure industry field, we realize that connection once we are in our pleasure state and being, it's just more ease, more play, more pleasure, more attraction, more magnetism, more everything around us. And it just I love how you just explained it of each area. You know how you can be highly functional, running a business, caring for others, leading, holding everything together. And on the outside, it might work. But inside, you feel tense, disconnected, on autopilot, or constantly on. I am Patricia, a mother, solopreneur, and the founder of Pleasure Lit. Pleasure Lit is for women who don't want their life, love, or leadership to come at the expense of their body. Women who are done functioning through exhaustion or self-overriding. I support high-functioning women to expand their capacity for pleasure so they can live, lead, and relate from within their body. As this capacity grows, women are making more embodied decisions. Relationships deepen, success and wealth becomes sustainable without the self-betrayal, and life reorganizes itself around the body rather than at the expense of it. Pleasure Lit integrates pleasure-led embodiment into real life through Tantra and trauma-informed somatic practices. Those are grounded in nervous system regulation, breathwork, movement, sexuality, holistic health, and embodied leadership. Pleasure becomes something that you live from, not something you access only in rest, intimacy, or escape. Pleasure lit from within your body. This is the pleasure-lit way. And if this sparked something inside you, go to pleasurelit.com to choose your path. When it comes to like pleasure blocks, for example, what are personal pleasure blocks for you where you've realized, oh, okay, this is where it dips with my pleasure? And also, what do you actually do? What helps you to move through those blocks when you realize, okay, this is now really blocking me or dipping? What can I do to overcome that?
Yeah, I think, we just kind of talked about it with morning sex, with not being in your head first thing in the morning. That's the biggest thing for me by far. I'm like a chronic overthinker, and I stress about things that I don't need to stress about. I worry about things that I don't need to worry about. I thought spiral, and I think I do this with sex and also outside of sex. And I think especially, and I'm not sure if you can relate to this, but I think it's really easy when you're working in the pleasure industry, or if you're doing a lot of work on yourself, it can almost sometimes feel like you have a lot of pressure to have everything figured out, And so I think the first thing that I do for myself when I find myself in those moments of overthinking is I don't shame myself. It could be really easy for me to be like, I'm supposed to have my shit figured out. I've done all of this work on myself. I'm supposed to be the expert in this field. And I am, but I'm also a human being. And so as a human being, I'm going to be imperfect, and I'm going to have moments when I don't have everything figured out, and I'm still going to have those blockages come up. And so I guess, for me, when it comes to the overthinking and the being in my head, the best thing for me is to do anything that's going to bring me back into my body. And so that can look different. I think a really big one is moving my body. So I make a conscious effort, whether I'm like in the middle of a block or not, but make a conscious effort every single day to make sure I'm moving my body through, going for a walk, exercise, dancing, allowing, my body to move and to process emotions in that way. But I think another really big one for those moments when I'm actually in it is bringing my hands to my body. And so that could be as simple as, closing down my eyes and bringing my, my fingers to like my forearm. Yes, it could be my chest, but it could be anywhere where I can just start to tune into the sensation. And I think a lot of the time for me, what I like to do is I like to play with sensation a little bit. So in those moments when I'm overthinking, in those moments when I'm in my head, starting to bring, light touch to my skin, and then starting to maybe squeeze and feel the difference between the light touch and more of like a massage. And in doing that and like sort of exploring the body with a little bit of curiosity and experimentation, you start to actually feel what feels good to you. And then suddenly when you start to really pay attention to what feels good to you and you start to give your body more of that, then all of a sudden you are in that state of pleasure that you've been wanting to be in. So that is something that works really, really well for me, whether it's, like I said, just touching like my hands, my forearms, or even, hands on the chest, doing like a breast massage or something like that. Could be for 2 minutes, and it makes all the difference.
I love that. And that you just explained it could be anywhere. So no matter where you are actually at and what kind of situation, if you want to bring yourself back into your body, it doesn't have to be sexual touch. It can be just slightly somewhere easing into the sensation. So when you are in, I don't know, a meeting or somewhere where, just like can't, like, I'm in my head so much, I need to get into my body. I mean, breath is also great, but yeah, even like here, the side here is like super sensitive. So when we can just run a finger up here, gives me the goosebumps already.
Totally.
I also just love how you said there are the tools obviously you can use while you're in it. Like you are in that moment where you're like, okay, I need a tool to implement to get into my body right now. But then also the everyday thing. So what is there anything what you do like almost every day where you ensure that you access your portals to pleasure that activate your pleasure energy in your everyday life?
Yeah, I love that question because it's so important, right, to make that conscious effort of making it a priority to infuse your day with pleasure, whether it's sexual or non-sexual. And I think for me, one of the big things, so something that I did for myself and something that I also do with a lot of my clients, and I've seen other people in the pleasure industry do something similar to this, but I've created sort of a menu, like a pleasure menu for myself. So yeah, you're nodding, like you're probably really familiar with this, but for anyone who's not, the idea is to actually take some time to sit down and think about what are those things that bring me pleasure. So I talked a lot about some of them, at the start of our conversation. It's the morning sex, it's the sunshine, the beach days, the really nice meals, cooking, all of these things. Those are examples, but there's heaps more, right? And so what you can do is you can kind of break them down. This is the way I did it, at least. I broke them down into, I've got my appetizers, and I love food also, so it's really fun to do it sort of, like a restaurant menu. I've got my appetizers, which are more bite-sized. They're things that don't require a lot of effort. They're things that I can reach for really easily when I need a little, top up, things that can kind of whet my appetite a little bit. So it could be something as simple as going and sitting out in the sun for 5 minutes, or putting on a song that I love and getting up and dancing in the middle of my workday, So it's little things that are super easy to implement. You have more of your main dishes that are going to probably require a little bit more time, a little bit more effort, but they're going to leave you feeling a bit more nourished. So something like that could be, a full body massage. That's something that I personally love. And then you have your desserts, which are going to be more indulgent. So your desserts are, for me, not things that I have on a daily basis, but they might be a little bit more decadent. They might require a little bit more planning. They're like for special occasions, So it could be like a romantic weekend getaway, or, a catch up with friends, or, something that feels a little bit more special. And so all of these things are going to help you infuse pleasure into your day to day. And I suppose what I do for myself is I ask myself on a day to day basis what I have capacity for, because the reality is life is busy. We're all busy. And I think sometimes it can be easy to get caught up in that busyness and to say that you don't have the capacity for any of these things. But if you actually think about it in terms of those bite-sized pleasures, and then the more like bigger ones, the more indulgent ones, we're always going to have capacity for something. On a weekday when we're really busy, we might be really stressed. We can go outside for 5 minutes and soak in the sunshine, or put on that song to dance. Or, like if we have a partner, we can make out for 60 seconds. You know what I mean? So we are always going to have capacity for something. And I make that conscious effort to infuse as much of that as I can. And on those days when I do have more capacity, just putting in the effort to actually make those things happen instead of just saying, it's too hard.
I love the appetizer, main menu, dessert categories. I suggest the menu style as well, but I usually say categorize it in times. 5 to 10 minutes, then anything that's over 10 minutes and anything that's over 20 minutes. But yours makes it even more playful and delicious and juicy. So I might have to implement that.
I love
the
that.
Inspiration.
Well, you're inspiring me now. You could do breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, and you can like 3-course meal. So you
Oh,
can start with an
yes.
appetizer, go into the main, and like do that all while you're on a getaway with your dessert.
That
Or
sounds
have dessert
amazing.
first and go then with your appetizer. But you can actually create that menu and you can like present it to your partner and say like pick a few, or like this is now
100%.
menu. Today is all about worshipping and cherishing you. Maybe create one from your partner and say you can pick some, and I serve them.
Yeah. And like seeing also the overlaps in between, what are the things that we can
Yeah.
do together? What are the things we can do separate that are going to, make us feel really juicy when we do come together? Yeah, there's so many ways that you can get like so creative and so playful with it. It's so much fun.
And that exactly is a part again. It takes it away from a mindset thing of, oh, I need to sit down and create a list of like being up in my mind, to actually make it a journey, make it an experience, come up with something to actually also be embodied while you're creating it or exploring it. So make it an embodiment practice again. So love that. Do you have like a pleasure ritual or practice that you love, that you get back to it again and again and again?
Hmm. Yes. Yeah. I want to say yes and no to this question because I almost, I almost have like started to move a little bit away from more of like the quote unquote rituals. I
Mm-hmm.
think there was a period of time when I was really into almost everything looking a little bit like a ritual, like just really, and there's nothing wrong with ritual, it's intentional, and it's drops you into a state of deep presence. But I think there were a lot of rituals that I used to rely on really early on in my sexual journey that I realized were just kind of things that looked real ritualistic. They were more like aesthetically ritualistic, or, there were things that a lot of people in the pleasure industry tell you should implement. It's things like sex magic practices, yoni eggs, crystal wands. Not that there's anything wrong with any of those things, but they're things that I feel like I've kind of outgrown a little bit. They felt a little bit like they were lacking a bit of substance. So I feel like the things that I come back to are more practices that allow me to kind of meet myself where I'm at. So a couple big ones for me, and again, like you can make them as ritualistic as you want or not. But one of the big ones for me is self yoni massage. And I think this kind of, well, I mean, I am a yoni massage practitioner, so I love, like, I'm so, like, I believe in this work so, so much. And it's such a big part of not just my work, but also of my embodied practice and how I live my life. But with, I suppose, self yoni massage, it kind of takes that practice of dropping yourself into presence in your body and bringing your hands to your own skin, but doing it in a bit of a more drawn out, elaborate experience, if that makes sense. So not because, it has to be elaborate, but it's just when you are bringing your hands to your body and dealing with parts of your body that, are more sexualized, your breasts and your vulva and your vagina. It's really, really important to have that slowness and to warm up the whole body. But what I find with that practice, and if people have never done self yoni massage, if they're listening, there are ways that you can go and you can learn about self yoni massage, but you don't have to do anything. Like you don't have to take a course. Essentially what it means is touching your body and your yoni included with slowness, with intent, with no goal. So it's all coming back to that idea of feeling into the sensations that are there in that present moment, whether it's pleasure, whether it's numbness, whether it's discomfort, whether it's, just neutral sensation, and just allowing yourself to feel the emotions that are coming up, allow yourself to express them, allow yourself to feel the physical sensations that are coming up, and just to connect with your body in that really slow, intentional way. That's a really, really important one for me that I come back to. And I think I will always come back to that one because it looks different every single time you do it. Another one that I love, I've loved more recently, is writing. And it's not just, journaling and brain dumping, but I love writing about sex. And it is something that, especially over the last year, I've really allowed myself to drop into the more of the creative writing practice. I've written for years and years and years, but I love writing creatively. And I find that, I didn't really talk about this before, but creativity, art, are really big portals to pleasure for me personally. And I find that when I'm creatively expressing myself, then it kind of intertwines with me sexually expressing myself too. And what I've been doing over the last year and a bit is doing more of like a creative writing practice where I'm writing about sex. I'm writing about, my fantasies, my sexual experiences, memories. And it's been a really fun practice. And I think as someone who loves to write and loves to be creative, I think it is a practice that I will continue to come back to again and again. And what I found with it is it can be such a powerful portal to pleasure to write about our sexual experiences, because when we do that, and I suppose it depends how you do it, right? You could just write like, this is what happened, or you could paint a picture of what happened and write about the sensation of the experiences. And I find when I do that, it actually creates such a huge level of turn on in my body. I'm actually, as I'm writing about the sensations, what it looked like, what it felt like, the smells, the taste, the sounds, I actually start to have that sensory experience in my body. And I found that a really, really powerful practice for turn on, for also starting to understand myself and layers of my sexuality that I haven't explored yet. And it's been a really, really fun pleasure practice for me.
Yeah, I've read some of your writing and I can say it's juicy. It's juicy.
That makes me so happy.
Love that. Are there any tools or products or books that might have like genuinely supported you on your pleasure journey?
Definitely the books. I will definitely say books. I mean, I love reading so much. I'm such a book nerd. And I'm sure people have probably recommended a lot of your like well-known books in like the sexuality world. You have books like Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski, Pussy by Mama Gina. Like those books have all been really influential for me.
Named.
But I suppose one that's maybe like a little bit off the beaten track that I love is called The Sexual Practices of Quedoshka. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't.
It's so good.
Oh.
So the author, I believe, is Amara Charles, and it's based on Native American teachings around genital anatomy. So the concept of the book is that it takes both male and female genital anatomy and breaks each one into 9 different categories. And it tells you about where your erogenous zones are. Each anatomy type is also named after an animal. Like in Native American tradition, it's named after an animal. And it gives you insight into where your pleasure zones are going to be located, your erogenous zones, what sex positions are going to work really well for you. It also gives you insight into sort of your erotic personality based on the animal that you're classified as. And it's a really cool book. I find it really fun and it's just totally different, but it's been a really nice book for me personally and for a lot of my clients that come in for yoni massage, specifically around body image, because it really normalizes all these different anatomy types. And it also gives you a really fun way to explore it. So I love that book. I swear I tell everyone about it.
Now when you just explained it, I'm like, I think I've heard that before. Like maybe you've mentioned it on a book club call or something, but
probably. Yeah.
Comes back to me.
It's a fun one to check out. And there's so many others, but honestly, like when I think about like tools or even books that have, helped me in my own sexuality journey and connecting deeper to my desires, even just reading erotica, and that's been a huge thing that I've been exploring, alongside my writing journey right now, because what I'm finding is that, it can be really easy when you're exploring different levels of your sexuality to go to the books and to educate yourself and learn all of these things. And very often there's nothing wrong with doing that. Like I love reading all of those books as well. But I find a lot of the time people read them and then don't implement them.
Hmm.
And you kind of get stuck in this like almost like addiction to like self-development where like you're just consuming, but then you're not embodying. And so
Not
what I find
integrating.
is actually taking a break from reading those books and reading erotica. So you're still reading about sex, but it's dropping you deeper into your imagination. It's dropping you deeper into your fantasies. And, you know, there's lots of different levels of erotica. Some of it is very well written and beautiful stories. Some of it is really raunchy and, you know, kind of like silly, and people will roll their eyes at it. But I find no matter what you're reading in that realm, it's going to activate your imagination, which is really, really important when it comes to sex, because your imagination is what allows you to get curious, and it allows you to also be playful in sex. And it also, as you're reading and as your body is responding to the things that you're reading, you're also going to feel turn on in your body a lot of the time. And it's going to give you insight into how your body reacts to different sexual stimuli, and perhaps give you insight as well into some of those deeper desires that maybe you haven't really played with yet. So that's, I would say, for everyone to explore erotica as a tool.
Have you got one that like specifically stands out for you where you're like, that's a good one?
There's so many. I think one that's at the top of my like head right now is there's a series that I love. Like it is a little bit silly at the start, but I found it really sexy. It's a series of 3 books by Sierra Simone, and they're called, the first one is called Priest, the second one is called Sinner, and the third one is called Saint. And I mean, like for me personally, I've come from a like very heavy Catholic upbringing. And so these books are all playing with like religious taboos. So you have a priest who's falling in love with a woman from his parish. You have, and they're all brothers. And you have, you know, the other brother who is more of like a playboy, but he has an affair with a nun. And then the third book is about the third brother who is a monk who has an affair with his ex-boyfriend. And so it's really fun, very sexy. They also are written by women, but they're from male perspectives, which I find really, really interesting.
Oh, interesting.
And then you have like the whole religious element. It's good. It's good.
Yeah, I love the suggestion because, like you said, we can get so much into our mind again of like, we should be doing this and this is what I need to learn. Where reading erotica is that permission slip again of like, you know, there are no boundaries, no limits, let's just explore. And also the writing, what I find personally, and this maybe also because it's second language for me when I read the English, it just gives me a little bit more extra language for sensations, and it also helps me to just name a few things differently, but also it can be very inspiring for me as well, where I'm like, oh, I haven't actually really looked at that. Yeah, that is a very conscious moment. If I slow down and name it like this and really focus on this, it's actually beautiful, instead of just like, yeah, I touch myself, like, you know, the rushing. But if you're then finding all the words of like how that can feel and how close you're going to get, and the vibration that you feel between the hair on your skin and the fingertips, and like, you know, it can get really like, okay.
I love that you said that, because I feel like I'm having an aha moment now as you're talking, because I feel like since I started that practice of writing, what I actually am noticing about myself in like sexual intimacy now is that I'm paying attention to so many things, and it almost takes me out of my head and more into my body, because you do start to pay attention to all those subtle sensations so much more than just, you know, like going straight towards, you know, goal-oriented sex. It's like every single part of it, the anticipation, the build-up, you know, the hairs raising on your arms, all of it is part of the experience. And I definitely notice myself really paying attention to every single one of those things in sex now. So that's super cool. I love that you said that.
This is exactly why I love these conversations about pleasure, because we're all learning and we're all on the journey, and it's so amazing to hear how others live and approach pleasure and work through things and what they've learned. And I find it super inspiring, and I can only imagine how inspiring that must be also for all the listeners. So I just love it. Thank you so much for all that you've shared so far. How do you support others to experience more pleasure, and where can people find you when they would like to connect with you, work with you?
Yeah, so I am located in Brisbane, but I do work in Brisbane as well as online. So my work is mostly with women around female sexuality, desire, and pleasure. So I suppose there's two main parts of my work. One is the body work. So therapeutic yoni massage is a huge part of what I do. So I do sessions in Brisbane in person. And I also have options for people to come in for, single sessions, packages, as well as we can blend it with coaching as well. I have a background in coaching, for more of like that immersive, integrative experience. And then I also do group work as well. So with group work, if people are in Brisbane, I do run occasional events and workshops in person. And the biggest thing that I'm running online at the moment is a program called Sultry Storytellers. So it's kind of become a bit of my signature program where we're sort of exploring pleasure, desire, the erotic through the lens of erotica. So we're reading erotica together, we're writing erotica together, and we're allowing both of those portals to spark conversation and exploration around what turns us on, around our boundaries, around our fantasies, our desires, our relationships, and not just the discussion around it, but also the somatic experience of sensation in the body. So it's been a really, really fun thing to create and to facilitate. And yeah, I guess if people are looking for me, they can find me. I have a website. It's probably the best place to find me because everything's going to be in one place. You'll have my offerings. You also have my social media links. But in terms of social media, people can connect with me on Instagram and Substack. So Substack is more like long form, also more uncensored stuff. And then Instagram, I'm still there, but it is a little bit more of like censored content and that kind of thing, but people can come and they can engage with me. They can ask me questions. I love connecting with people who are interested in this work. So I would be so happy for people to reach out. Across all of those, I'm just Liz Gorga. So it's lizgorga.com, Liz Gorga on Substack, Liz Gorga on Insta.
I love that. Just one last question. And thank you so much for everything you've shared so far. I really appreciate it. Your open, honest integrity around all of that. Very authentic. I love that. Thank you so much. If pleasure could speak through you right now, what would it want people to know?
I think the thing that's coming up for me right now is pleasure would want people to know that it's literally at your fingertips. I think we overcomplicate it sometimes and we think that it has to look a certain way or feel a certain way. But if we think of it in terms of anything that feels good in our bodies and makes us feel nourished and relaxed and juicy, we have so many opportunities to reach for that in a normal day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. If you've liked this episode, make sure to follow and subscribe to the show and give it a 5-star rating on Spotify. And also share it along so we can spread more pleasure into this world. Sending you lots of love and pleasure. Mwah.